Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. I am going to be doing a review for you this afternoon, an honest review. This movie, a lot of hype surrounding it, and I really wanted to watch it because one of my favourite directors did it, and he's a Frenchman, and he's the same guy who directed Frontiers, which is a French horror movie, one of my favourite French horror movies of all time. So, since coming to America, his form has dropped a little bit, as is the case with a lot of foreign directors coming into Hollywood. They all seem to fall under the Hollywood curse of selling out. So, but I had hypes for this one because a lot of people have been giving it some good reviews. There have been some bad ones, but majority have been good. So I wanted to give myself a chance, and hopefully the director could redeem himself with this one. It's a 2011 release, as I said, a US horror film, English language, directed by Xavier Gens, and this movie is called The Divide. Now, The Divide is a post-apocalyptic, end-of-the-world kind of science fiction slash horror film, and the story to this one is as follows. When an atomic bomb devastates New York, 8 strangers take refuge in the basement of their apartment building. The residents soon succumb to cabin fever as fear of radiation and dwindling food and water plays on their minds. However, Julie, the only young woman, has her own worries as the men begin to regress into dangerous packs. She quickly learns to be ruthless if she wants to survive, aware that her sanctuary is becoming her hell. So New York has been under attack by an atomic bomb. It's not stated as to who specifically dropped the bomb, but the survivors that end up seeking refuge in the basement of this apartment complex have their theories. So the whole of New York has been leveled. There is radiation everywhere. It's very, very dangerous to be outside. So there's 8 survivors that are complete strangers to each other, and they take refuge in the basement. Now, the basement, the guys seal off the door, and the guy who owns basically runs the apartment complex is taking charge. And he's saying that no one is going to go outside until he says it's safe to do so because he is not going to risk radiation seeping into the room. So there's only 2 women. There's 2 women and a young child who's a girl, but they're the only females. The rest of them are males, and all of these males are macho men, and they want to run the show, and they're not going to listen to the guy who has made the rules. But he's not going to let anyone go through this door. So that creates a little bit of a problem. There's a little bit of tension within the group, but they all realise that it's too dangerous to go outside. They have no idea what's happened. They don't know how bad the damage is, but what they do know from personal experience of the guy who runs the apartment, he says that if they go outside, they risk having their faces melted off, and he basically scares them into staying into this basement. Now, problems are plenty for this group of survivors, as food and water are minimal, and the sanity of these survivors is rapidly deteriorating. So as the film progresses, the mental state of these fragile individuals is getting worse and worse, and it soon turns out to be a fight for survival as the survivors begin turning on each other. So that's as far as I'm going to go. Synopsis, if you want to know how this one unfolds, then you guys know what you have to do. Now, my thoughts on this movie. As I said, this had a lot of hype surrounding it, but my biggest problem for French directors going over to Hollywood is that they leave what they do best. And what they do best is the dark, grim, very realistic kind of horror films, in that not everything is a fairy tale ending. So Alexander Aja is a prime example of what I'm about to say. He made a brilliant film in High Tension. He has since come over to America. He's dropped his style. He's basically thrown everything out the window, and he's sold out. It's basically everything is about the money, which is what I feel is the Hollywood curse. So when the big bucks get in the way, you kind of leave your trademark style of film work. So I lost respect for Alexander Aja, and when Xavier Gens made his way from France, like Alexander Aja, to Hollywood, he made Hitman. Hitman was crap, and this is why I was feeling that Xavier Gens was going down the same road as Alexander Aja. But when I heard about this movie, I thought maybe he is going back to what he does best, and that is the grim sort of tale of horror and genuine horror. And after seeing this movie, Xavier Gens has completely redeemed himself in my view. This movie goes back to Frontiers. Now, it's obviously a different movie, but it's the same grim atmosphere, the dirty, horrific atmosphere that made Frontiers so good, he has brought into this film. And you can really see that It's a Frenchman who made this movie, and it just has a very French flavour to it. And if you like your extreme French horror movies, you're going to like this one. And that's why this movie really does give Hollywood some sort of redeeming quality, in that foreign directors coming over here haven't lost their touch. Well, not all of them have lost their touch, and Xavier Gens is definitely one of them. Now, this is a very sad film. It is not happy. At no stage will you feel happy. It's a very post-apocalyptic feel, although you don't really see too much scenery. It's basically all in this basement. Now, it nearly goes for 2 hours, and it could be very easy for Xavier Gens to really lose the plot and make it boring and drag. Fortunately, the continuity in this film was very good, because as the film progresses, there's not that much violence, but as it progresses, the mental state is beginning to get worse and worse for these individuals, and it really makes you interested to see who is going to crack first and what they might do. And it really does raise the question of, when there's fear, what will it do to humanity? And it reminded me of a scene in The Mist, a Stephen King adaptation by Frank Darabont, where the main character says, once you've got fear, anybody is capable of anything. All bets are off, and that even the most mild and placid people can turn into maniacs. And that's exactly what the feeling I got with this one. People who start off having a concern for each other, and then they start going into animalistic sort of characteristics, and that they abandon humanity, and it's basically a fight for survival, rules of the jungle, and they become primal, and it really is scary, and it's a very real thing that we face, in that when things are going well for us and we're safe and protected, we're the best people, you might be the best person that ever lived, but once you get into a hopeless situation, what will happen to a person? And that's really what this film looks at. It's a psychological torment film. It's not so much a gory film. If you're expecting gore like Frontiers, you're going to be a little bit disappointed. But I actually feel that Xavier Gens has risen the standard even more, in that this is a very psychologically damaging film. And it's not the gore on screen. There is a little bit of violence, and it's quite hard to watch in some parts, but it's not the violence that makes the film so good. It is the psychological impact that it will have on you, and it will make you think, in that, how would you react in a certain situation where that things are very bleak. So that's what I really liked about it the most. It's very psychological. The acting was very good. Lauren German, who I think was from Hostel 2, had an opportunity to shine. I thought she did. The biggest positive for the acting is that no one was the main character. Everybody had their own characteristics, and you felt for each and every one of them. Even the villains, well, they turn out to be villains, you can kind of feel sorry for, because they've pretty much abandoned all hope, and they've just gone completely insane. So each and every character is very interesting without going into too much depth. I thought that the whole situation was just hopeless, therefore it gave you a very sympathetic feel to each and every one of the characters, and they all did a fantastic job. Now, the soundtrack, very, very fitting. I mean, Xavier Gens really does have an ear for appropriate soundtrack to make a scene even more emotional, and that's what you get. It is a very emotional film. It's a very depressing film, and if you like your hardcore sort of horror that doesn't rely on its violence, it just relies on its hopeless psychology, then I would highly recommend it to you. I mean, this is a fantastic movie. I'm giving it 4.5 out of 5. If you haven't seen it and you're a fan of French horror, definitely get it, because although it's American, it really does have that French extreme sort of feel to it. So I was really impressed. It's given me hope for foreign directors coming over to Hollywood to keep their style, to keep what makes them successful, and for more foreign directors coming into Hollywood, I reckon Hollywood will start creeping up in the ranks, because really their game has been quite poor lately, but this one, it really does deliver. So yeah, 4.5 out of 5. I thought it was fantastic. Alright guys, that's my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Until next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later. Bye.